Inside of this box are two of the most dangerous ant species in the world, and my challenge was to try and keep these venomous ants for 30 days. But what was supposed to be a simple unboxing turned into a complete disaster. The package arrived damaged and completely soaked in chemicals, and by the time I got them, nearly half of the colony was already dead, and more were dying by the minute. And to make things worse, the lid on the ants' nest was completely warped, and they were already escaping into my ant room. These ants have one of the most painful stings in the world, and if I don't act fast, things would completely spiral out of control. But to see if I could save them before it was too late, we have to rewind time, back to where it all began. This video is sponsored by Aesthetic Ants. Over the past 6 years, I've kept more ant species than I can even count, ranging from tiny harmless ants that barely even notice you, to vicious predators capable of taking down prey hundreds of times their size and that would invade my home if I ever made a mistake. Each one has taught me something new about ant keeping and just how incredible these small creatures really are. But there's always been a part of me that has wanted to push things further, to take on something that most ant keepers would never dare to try. These ants are so aggressive and venomous that even experienced ant keepers avoid them altogether. So after many years of playing it safe and perfecting my craft, I decided that now was finally the time to give myself a real challenge. And so, I went online and I researched some of the most venomous and hard to keep ants in the world, and just a few short days later they were on their way. And now, all that was left to do was wait. 7 long days later and the package had finally arrived, but the moment that I saw it, my stomach dropped. This was not good. My best guess is that something from the warehouse had leaked all over the package, and I braced myself for the worst. Whatever happened during transit, I will never know, but I knew that if these ants had any chance of surviving, if they were even alive at all, I had to act fast. When I opened the box, I could see 2 packages. One of them at first glance looked to be okay, but when I picked up the second test tube, my heart sank. The same chemicals that soaked through the box had completely covered the paper towel wrapped around the tube. It was dripping wet, and I had no idea how long the ants had been sitting in it. And when I peered into the test tube, I could see some movement. This was a good sign, but if the queen hadn't survived the trip, the colony would be doomed. But there was still hope that the queen could be alive, and so I quickly gathered a clean test tube and I attached it to the other end, hoping that the colony would move in on their own. The second colony was far larger, and when I pulled them out, they seemed to be dry. The second colony appeared to have escaped the chemicals, but as soon as I uncovered the nest, I knew that something was terribly wrong. The colony was supposed to have around 30 workers, but when I looked into the nest, nearly half of them were dead. I immediately connected the colony to a temporary outworld, and I noticed a strong ammonia smell coming from the nest. The chemicals had seeped into the nest during shipping, and the fumes were slowly killing my colony. This was terrible news, and I knew that I had to move the ants out, but I didn't have a new nest suitable for these ants on hand. I had a new shipment of products on the way, but all I could do was wait for them to arrive and do my best to keep the colony alive. And in the meantime, while I waited, I knew that these ants were hungry, and they were ready to hunt. This is a live cockroach, and unlike other species of ants, these ferocious killers will only accept live food. Equipped with a powerful sting and incredible eyesight, these ants are a formidable force. They also possess the ability to jump and have razor-sharp jaws. And as soon as I dropped the roach into the nest, the ants went into full-on attack mode, and they wasted no time to try and bring down their prey. These ants are known for their exceptional hunting skills, and usually hunt solo, being able to take down prey single-handedly and bring them back to the nest. And after the ants grabbed hold, it didn't take long for the venom to take effect, and before long, the roach lay motionless. The ants then began to tear the roach apart into small pieces to take back to the nest and feed their hungry larvae. Unlike most ant species, these ants only consume protein and will not eat any form of sugar that you offer them. But when I checked on the colony a few days later, I realized that something was very wrong. The acrylic lid of the nest had started to warp, creating a gap that was just wide enough for the ants to squeeze through. It hadn't looked like this the day before, and I believe that the chemicals that leaked into the box had somehow warped the acrylic. This was really bad, and if the ants escaped, it could be very dangerous. The sting of these ants is no joke, and it can trigger serious reactions that could lead to hospitalization, so I had to think fast. A few hours later, and I had managed to acquire a new piece of acrylic that was the right size, but now came the dangerous part of trying to replace it. And so I prepared myself, and with a steady hand I slowly began to replace the acrylic, making sure not to leave any gaps for the ants to squeeze through. And after the most intense 30 seconds of my life, the new acrylic was in place. This would temporarily solve the issue, but little did I know that this was just the beginning. A few days later, and the new products were finally here. These products are from Aesthetic Ants, a company that is well known in the ant-keeping community, and they were kind enough to send me some of their new and improved designs to try out. These products look clean and well built, and the materials are durable and made to last. If you like anything that you see in this video, please be sure to check them out. They also offer worldwide shipping on orders over €100, and I have a 10% discount code linked in the description. The current outworld for my Harpagnathos colony was too small, and now that the products were finally here, I thought it was a good time for an upgrade. I followed the instructions step by step, and after a few minutes, the colony's outworld was now complete. As a last-minute decision, I decided to add some desert sand to the outworld to give it some life. But little did I know that adding that sand would turn out to become a horrible mistake. After a few days, the Trapjaw colony still hadn't moved into their new test tube, and I was getting quite worried. This mini Waitong nest is the perfect size for this small colony, and I decided to offer it to them to see if they would move in. I quickly attached the test tube to the new nest, and when I did that, I noticed a few dead workers at the edge of the tube. This was not a good sign. To my relief, the colony instantly started to move into the new nest once they scoped out the area, and I could now finally get a better look at them. And just a few hours later, the colony was fully moved into the new nest. These ants are from the genus Odontomachus, and they are some of the coolest ants in the world. They are equipped with great eyesight, a powerful stinger, and razor-sharp jaws that are capable of delivering the fastest and most powerful bite in the entire insect kingdom. Their diet mostly consists of protein, and they need to hunt in order to survive, so I quickly assembled an outworld for them and I offered them a roach to see if they were hungry. The jaws on these ants are so powerful that they can decapitate their prey with lightning speed and inflict fatal wounds. They also have a special ability where they can aim at the ground and make themselves go flying. This is often used to catapult themselves away from danger. Both of these species are semi-claustral, which means that the queen has to hunt for food to feed her developing young. And even though this colony already has workers, the queen is still just as active and is often found foraging for food to bring back to the nest. In this clip, you can see that the queen of the colony is dragging her prey back to the nest to feed her young, even though the workers are just as capable of doing so, which is a behavior that I have never seen before as an antkeeper. And when I checked back on the other colony, what I saw was any antkeeper's worst nightmare. The ants were taking rocks from the outworld, wedging them between the glass and using that to escape. And when I finally noticed, it was already too late. The gap was big enough for the ants to squeeze through, and when I counted the colony, one worker was missing. The ants had broken free, and it was at this moment that I realized I had truly underestimated them. This was really bad, and I knew that I had to find this worker as quickly as possible before it had any chance of stinging me or my other pets. I proceeded to search my entire ant room for this worker, and 10 minutes later I finally saw it. These ants can jump, and they can also see me from miles away, so I had to be really careful. I quickly grabbed a container, and I coaxed the ant to jump inside, and I sealed the lid. I then carefully introduced it back into the outworld, but this didn't solve the true problem. I tried to remove the rocks that the ants had squeezed in between the cracks, thinking that this would solve the issue, but I then realized that the ants had warped this piece of acrylic too, and they could still escape from the nest. So I quickly gathered one of the new nests, and I prepared it for the ants to move in. This is cocoa peat, and from what I've heard, the ants absolutely love it because it holds humidity well, and it also helps the ants' larvae to spin cocoons, so I decided to add some. The first step of the move was to unplug the old nest from the outworld and try to hook up the new one. At this point, it was hopeless to try and get the ants to move in on their own, and this would surely lead to more escaping. So I now had no choice but to place their old nest into the outworld and hope that they move in. But the nest didn't perfectly fit in the outworld, and this made things pretty dangerous. At this point, I was really scared of getting stung, but I knew that it had to be done. And just like that, the ants were now safely inside of the outworld, and I could now breathe a sigh of relief. I let the colony be for a few hours to try and find a new nest, and hopefully they would move in. And after just a few days, their old nest was completely empty. Looking into the new nest, I was delighted to see that the whole colony had moved in, and they were settling in nicely. These ants are truly some of the most dangerous ants that I have ever kept, and since the new nest was secure, I didn't have to worry about them escaping. It has truly been a wild ride since I got these two colonies, and I'm sure that as their numbers grow, things will only get more intense. Stay tuned for the next 100 days to see how these colonies grow over time, and if you like what you see, please be sure to subscribe and leave a like on the channel. So with that said, thank you all for watching, have a good day, and until next time, peace.